Hello and welcome, Exiles. I want to introduce you to a character I've been working on that has 60,000 plus armor, 30,000 plus evasion, 85 max all res, spell suppressing cap. It's got a lot of defensive layers, and it does it with attributes. This is a character, the idea is pretty simple. I want to stack a bunch of the attributes and then still have a character. Funnily enough, our tree is straight up 95% travel passives. You look at this tree, you think I am memeing, and I am partially memeing, to be honest. But this actually has a decent amount of scaling behind it, sort of. So the way it works is when you scale into a bunch of attributes, you can start tagging in basically secondary benefits from items and other basically attribute passives and stuff that ends up making it so you can still scale a somewhat solid character. Things like Shaper's Touch say, hey, you have 300 flat life. Hey, you have capped accuracy. Oh look, now you can have good evasion rating while grabbing Mage Bane for spell suppress. Our character doesn't actually have spell suppress on any of our gear pieces, but for Mage Bane alone and these passive points, I think I needed like 5 flat spell suppress on top of that to cap spell suppress. So I got spell suppress on my Watcher's Eye. Eventually, if I actually min-max this character, I could spell suppress cap without even the Watcher's Eye mod. I'd have like 95 spell suppress without it, I believe. If I went and took this off, it'd be about 95. Yeah, 95. So we're obviously very close. With just another like 70 flat decks, we would be there. It also has interesting things like you can put on Fractal Thoughts, and this is a helmet that normally would just be a deck stacker helmet, but if you're stacking all your attributes, it's giving you a lot of life. It's giving you 200 flat life, 100% increased elemental damage, some crit multi, some increased dex. There's some nice stats that go along with it, and you can pick up a nice double corrupt for pretty cheap considering this isn't a very like sought after helmet sort of thing. There's other benefits like going into Cyclopean Coil, which says, hey, per 5 of your lowest attribute, you're gonna get 1% damage. Well, since we're a character with 1100 of attributes of each stat, this is actually giving us 225% or 200 and something percent damage, and then you include a mastery that gives 1% per 5 lowest attribute, that gives you another 200% damage. You include something like Iron Will, that gives us another 200% damage. All of a sudden, you actually have a decent amount of percent damage scaling without actually grabbing percent damage on your tree. So we can afford to have a weird, wacky tree. This, of course, is a level 99 character. I've stretched this character so thin just to set up the attributes in a perfect way where I get chill or freeze immunity and ignite immunity on my belt sort of thing. I was just trying to balance my attributes just to make strength the highest, then dex, then int. It was an awkward thing to do, but I got there eventually. We, of course, also are getting a bunch of free armor from Radiant Faith when we reserve our life pool. That gives us a bunch of armor. That's why our character is able to have 60-something K armor. We are scaling our life because we have a lot of free, basically, life from all these attributes, and then just a little bit of percent life on the tree means that we can scale a high ES with something like Ivory Tower. That's kind of the pairing I'm going for. A bunch of free armor from Guardian, and then of course we cap our crit by grabbing Righteous Providence Jewels. So we have a build that caps their crit, that gets a decent amount of percent damage scaling, that gets a whole lot of defensive scaling with just grabbing attributes. That's the weird, wacky interaction. I decided I wanted to make a build around Cospri's Malice because somebody gifted me the Kyric's Vault, and so I was like, okay, I have to use this cool MTX. Unfortunately, the one issue with this build is, well, I was convinced, you know what, I'm going to try to make a reduced proj speed amulet, and I'm going to use Eye of Winter. The tech Junghead setup seemed like it would be a good time, but there's an unfortunate problem with this, which is Clear freaking sucks. It sucks so bad when you put reduced proj speed on your amulet. I think it would work fine if you have like a really, really fast character, but our character's like, you know, a guy with Quicksilver and movement speed boots. We're at like the minimum for a character in terms of movement potential. So we're gonna take 9 years to get to the boss because of how yeah. I mean, I guess our clear isn't like technically the worst thing ever, but it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad clear, right? So there is that sort of issue with the build, and I should be on D&D, but I'm not because I'm a terrible person. So I'm gonna cut this trade out of the actual recording of this video if this person even shows up. Of course it's PoE, so by the time they've messaged you, they've messaged 5 other people, right? And they've probably already got what they want because one of those people finally messages them back, so he probably doesn't even want to trade anyways. So I'm going to take this opportunity to put myself on D&D because I always forget to do that. Anyways, But hopefully I'm illustrating the problem very clear. Our clear is potato. We have an infinity layer of defenses, but our clear is just, it's so bad. Thank you, Junk Road, for baiting me into doing reduced proj speed. Eye of Winter. Hey, it does more damage. It does more damage. And frankly, I'm not even doing it right. Like, I should really have more reduced proj speed than just the reduced proj speed on my amulet, and I should min-max the amulet to have a higher reduced proj speed, right? But I was also trying to get attributes on my amulet, so there are issues with this setup that are basically solely on me, right? I haven't set up the reduced proj speed correctly, so I'm not going to fully benefit from the high ridiculous damage scaling it gets. And there's other issues, like with our character, we don't have great crit multi, for example, and that's a huge lacking layer of where we could have way more damage. Just getting a crit multi roll on this amulet, get a 3 stat instead of a 2 stat amulet, you know, all attributes, strength index, and then crit multi with proj speed, that would end up being an amulet that would be make us do, like, I don't know, 50% more damage or something. We have a really low amount of crit, and I can't even fit crit damage on my supports, I feel like, because of how tight my supports feel as is. We still do single target, right? We can still kill monsters. We still have an infinity amount of defense, but I don't know what exactly happened, but for whatever reason, I can't fully get behind the thing I've made here. It's a fun, interesting build, a little bit wacky. Obviously, if he could kill, if he hit us, our righteous fire is based on the enemy dealing damage to us. So I have to recoup in order to turn righteous fire on there, and since he didn't hit us, we didn't have righteous fire for the fight, but that happens sometimes. Obviously, the damage is still, like, it's solid. Maybe it's because I'm coming off a really good build, but after putting this all together and being like, yeah, that's my damage, I'm just like, I look back on it and I'm just like, that's just kind of mediocre, right? Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but this is just a fun build I wanted to try out, throw together real quick, just solely go into the tri-attribute stack. I definitely think there is potential for this sort of setup, but the way I've done it, it isn't quite right. It didn't quite get the results I think it needed to. Something I'm going to probably try in the future with a different setup if I come up with better ideas with how to push this sort of build. Just kind of a video I wanted to throw out just to showcase, hey, I tried something wacky with tri-attribute stacking. The clear was, it was bad. It made the build irredeemable, in my opinion. The clear was too questionably bad. But aside from that, it still was a fun character to try, and hopefully you guys enjoyed the video regardless. Thank you for taking the time to watch it, and I will see you guys in the next one. Hopefully we can come up with something better than the tri-attribute stacker that brings home even more bacon than this build did here. Take care, Exiles.